Hey, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of Season 7 here on Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm your host, Stephen Rose, and thanks for joining us. I hope you all had a great holiday, some time off, but it's time to get back to work. And I am excited, like I have been for almost no other guest on our show, to finally get a chance to talk with Special Olympics and all the stuff they've done. I am personally a huge supporter. I've been part of their World Games. I've been part of the games up here in the Seattle, Washington area. I love the work that they do. Special Olympics, if you're not familiar with them, has been around for over 50 years. They are the world's largest sport organization for children and adults with intellectual and physical disabilities. They provide year-round training and activities to 5 million participants and the Unified Sports Partners in 226 sites in 172 countries. Special Olympic competitions are held every day around the world, including local, national, and regional competitions, adding up to more than, check this out, 100,000 events per year. The competitions have a very moving oath, and this is one of the things that I love about Special Olympics, and it is, let me win. But if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. That oath is far-reaching, with over 4.4 million athletes that are involved in programs around the world. Last summer, the Summer Games were in Orlando in June. They had 4,000 athletes, over 100,000 people attended, and it was their biggest event since COVID. They had the World Games in Berlin with 4,000 athletes and the Unified Cup for soccer, or as the rest of the world knows it, football. So that's a lot. And amazing work. And at the center of this is my guest today, Priyanka Nandi, who is the CIO, CTO of Special Olympics. Priyanka, I know how busy you are. You're actually on your time off, so I cannot thank you enough for taking your personal time out of your vacation to sit and chat with us today. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Stephen, for having us. And thanks for the wonderful introduction of our movement. Very excited to be here.
I'm such a huge fan, and one of the great things that I did was every year I would take my daughter to volunteer when we would do our local events, and it was such a great thing for her, and she saw so much stuff, and she just loved helping the families, or if somebody got lost and doing that, and it was such a great experience for her, and such an amazing way to give back, and just you have a big smile on your face at the end of the day, and you get the cool T-shirt, so there's all the great stuff about it. But we're going to talk about teams today. But before we do, I see you have digital written on your shirt. And I know that there's a little connection with Microsoft here. And what is the digital there? Tell me about it. We'll start with that.
So thanks, Stephen, for asking. And first of all, your daughter and many others, we rely on 1 million volunteers. We call them volunteers, just incredible people taking time out of their day to support our athletes. We couldn't thank you and thank her enough. So thank you so much.
Of course.
So digital. So my role, in the organization is to not just think about how we support these local programs and the athletes and their families and all the participants in the movement, across the world with time and effort and energy, but really how do we use technology to support scaling what we do? And how do we help more athletes, acquire more volunteers, make the lives of our staff on the ground easier so they can do their work and really make that impact? And that's really where the organization has invested in digital transformation as one of our strategic objectives for the next 10 years. We know that nonprofits, to be able to impact that many people and to grow our movement will take time just because of resources and availability of staff and all the things we need. So we've decided to create a specific initiative called our Digital Center of Excellence. And this is now a program that we've launched in collaboration with Special Olympics Washington. The group Special Olympics International, which is what I represent, and Washington, we've gotten together and said, hey, why don't we start a special initiative?
And that is Washington State, not Washington, D.C.
That's correct, Washington
Just making
State,
sure.
Yep. So why don't we set up a special initiative where what we will do is build a set of shared services, shared technology services that all of our chapters across the world can leverage to utilize modern technology and cloud-based technologies to do their operational work every day. So you can imagine this is everything from registering our athletes, our participants in the movement to engage in all of those sporting competitions and events that we have every year. It is to enable our volunteer corps to be able to volunteer, seek opportunities to work with us both either in person or even online, and give back to the movement should they have time and the capacity to do so. And all of this is going to be built off the Microsoft Dynamics platform. So we've really focused on finding a wonderful, systems implementer, as many, nonprofits have to do that has global experience, and bringing together, the data from all of these chapters across the world in one environment in Azure, and using the Dynamics 365 platform to expose the information that they need to acquire more volunteers, to have their athletes stay engaged in the movement over time. Because as you said, we bring in athletes from, the age of 2 all the way through adulthood. So how do we track the lifetime of that athlete in our movement? Make sure that they have access to the services and opportunities that we can provide them over time. And, a big piece of this came out of COVID, basically. The impact of COVID for our organization was massive, and I can talk about that all day. But when we found out that during COVID, we weren't able to have events. We weren't able to have athletes see each other in person because of the impact of the virus on the population of IDD. It's quite significant.
Yeah,
so we need to make sure we shut down.
And let's stop there for a second. I mean, outside of like golf, sports requires a group of people and requires people to be together into closer groups. And if that's at the core of what you're doing,
that's right.
What do you do when you get to that moment going, wait a minute, we're not going to be in close proximity to each other? So that's pretty much every sport, whether the athletes are separate or not, you still have coaches, you have other people are going to be there, you have amazing mentors that are ex-athletes that are all part of this. So what do you do at that point? And I know that you would, come on to Special Olympics. They had sort of looked to you. You did an amazing job of sort of setting back to take a look at, how are we going to do this and keep everybody connected? So what were sort of the first things that you did? And of course, let's also remind everybody, you're working across 24 time zones as you do this too.
That's right. That's a great question. I wanted to show you some examples of that, Stephen, if that's okay.
I would love that.
How we've pivoted from the in-person experience to the online experience, and how we focus on using Microsoft Teams to help us do that. So I do have some examples I'd like to share. So what you're seeing here are some examples in which, not only were we advocating for our athletes to get vaccinations, because at that time it was the best defense that they would have from getting sick. We also realized, what other digital tools can we start using to make sure our athletes stay connected and stay engaged. So an example of that was we worked with, Teams and other online video platforms to start doing practices at home. So how can our athletes continue to stay fit and healthy? They're not being able to see their coach. So can a coach host a workout session online? Absolutely, yes, they can. So we started doing a lot of that.
And let me also say, there's also a huge emotional connection between the athletes, the coaches, and a lot of the ex-athletes who are mentors for a lot of these folks. That time together is incredibly important. And I've heard so many athletes talk about how they mentor, how they work with others, and that community, that feeling of closeness and sharing and having other people who really get you and understand you, and those bonds that you build is critical. So keeping that is such a big part, because it's so much more than the games. It's those relationships and friendships that they build that literally last forever and are a key part of that foundation of that just the proudness and the excitement and everything they get from being an athlete with Special Olympics.
1,000%, Stephen. And one of the things we learned after about a year of being in lockdown was that when we were reaching out to our athletes and surveying them on how they were feeling about not being able to participate, we found really high levels of depression and anxiety among our athletes because they weren't able to spend that time with their friends, with their community. And so finding online tools and ways to engage digitally was an enormous game changer for us during this time. And we found that since things have been opening it up and we've been having events again, that component of keeping the online engagement is absolutely still part of our programming. So while our different chapters all over the world were getting used to this, it wasn't easy at first, but now they see the benefits of being able to reach more of their athletes if they can't come together, and to continue to cultivate using online platforms to do so. We also have a huge training program that we do for our volunteers. So anytime somebody joins the movement as a volunteer, we give them training on how to work with our athletes, how to think about things like protective behaviors, and to make sure that they know how to keep an athlete safe. And we also do training for the medical volunteers that we have that work at those thousands and thousands of events where they're doing medical screenings of our athletes. And in some cases, these are medical screenings these athletes receive for the first time. You can imagine an athlete in Africa, at a region, in a country where access to medical care, especially medical care with professionals who have been trained to work with people with ID, is something that's very novel. So what Special Olympics does is we have a curriculum that's designed for those medical professionals. They're able to understand how to do everything from, audio tests to mental health exams, even podiatry, and I can go on and on.
Yeah.
And what they're eventually realizing is like, you know what? Digital health platforms are now a thing. You can do telehealth using
video. And we've actually
technology.
had a telehealth provider on the show. We had Vituity to talk about this, and they talked about how they're using Teams. So Teams and Dynamics is really at the core of this to enable you to connect and to share that information and to really have everything in one place and to not have to be duplicative over all that and really making it the norm. Because,
Yes.
you guys saved a ton of money by not traveling, which is great, but COVID forced all these changes and you came in right as all this started to hit. I'd love to talk about how you're using Teams, because I know one of the things you said to me that was great is you've reduced email, by over 50%, that now it's really chat is doing things. But let's actually go forward a few slides and let's talk about some of the integrations and some of the apps that you're using, because it's not just Teams. It's really about these productivity workflows and doing this, which is such a key part of managing the events, the games, real-time groups, et cetera. So walk us through some of the stuff that you're doing inside of Teams that, beyond just getting rid of things like Dropbox and moving to OneDrive, getting rid of Zoom, and things along that line, using Clipchamp with Stream, all which help to save money and lack of travel. Talk about some of the integrations you've done to help people stay in one place, which is more than just dollars. It really is time and where the information sits.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Those are perfect examples of things that we recognize from a cost perspective and time perspective. It makes sense to have our whole organization, which is around 350 staff worldwide across, 14 different time zones. How do we stay productive and connected when most of our workforce is now remote? So imagine that. So they're already using a lot of tools, but they're not necessarily making it easy for those tools to be accessed from one place, and for all of that data and those documents and file sharing to be housed in a central place. So what you're looking at on the screen now, an example of all of the apps that we use in our organization. So everything from Smartsheet to Freshdesk, which is our help desk tool, to Miro, which is how we do a lot of our persona journeys and drawing out workflows, to Skillsoft, which does a lot of our training and learning management, Confluence and Jira. These are all tools that many of us in the technology world are very familiar with. And what we found is that our staff are using these tools all of the time on their own, on their individual laptops. And it said, hey, why don't we start to centralize, given that we're starting to use a lot of cloud solutions, why don't we look at the integrations that Teams offers out of the box? And lo and behold, all of these solutions existed. So what you're seeing here is an example of the app store inside of Teams that we've connected to that allows staff to say, okay, I'm using, Microsoft Planner. I want to bring that into my Microsoft Teams environment. I want to start utilizing Percipio and start showing that training course directly in Teams instead of leaving the platform. And these are just some examples of the integrations that we've started working with.
And we've actually had Jira on the show. We've had Atlassian on the show. We've had Adobe on the show. And one of the big things that helps to make this easier, and for those of you that aren't familiar, there really is two types of apps. There's the type of apps which create their own tab, which may be a browser or something like that working. But the great thing about Jira and Adobe and Workday, ServiceNow is these are integrated apps, meaning you can actually not have to have the app as a separate window if somebody has it, but you can do all the things that you would do inside of Confluence and Cloud, inside of Teams, and actually do things like take a chat, turn it into a ticket. You can use it for development and with Planner. So they're fully integrated into the platform and allows you to communicate with people who maybe are not using Teams and just using Confluence or just using Adobe Sign, et cetera. and to be able to work without having to leave the app. And that's a huge time saver. And it puts all that information in one place. And I love that you're doing this. And like I said, we'll do a reference back to those shows with Atlassian and Adobe. But this is great to see that mixture of our Microsoft 365 integrated apps, these third-party integrated apps, and the first ones, because you're keeping people in the flow of work. How important is that to kind of go, look, if you're in Teams, everything you need, whether you're on mobile, Mac, iPad, etc., pretty much everything you need is right here. You don't have to start switching back and forth. How important is that for you and for folks?
It's extremely important. When you imagine that we were used to working primarily in person and moving to an online environment, the idea of collaborating online was completely brand new. Even using the features of O365 and M365 in a way that would allow multiple people to work on the same space in the same document, that was even novel for us. So starting with just how do you collaborate and work together online was one big benefit. And then how do you do that in one encapsulated space like Teams, where you can have a chat on the side, you can refer to the document in one place. Fewer clicks and fewer time spent was the massive gain that we had obviously seen from day one, Stephen.
Love it.
And then being able to add these integrated apps, even better. So there's now a joke internally where I'm always asking, does it integrate with Teams? Like that's the initial question that I ask before we even decide, which product might we pick to do something new or turn on a new capability, because we really do want to drive a lot of the workforce workflows through Teams wherever it makes sense, because the cost for us is extremely important. This is an example, by the way, of smart sheets and how we're integrating views of smart sheet portals directly into Teams, attached to the teams that it needs to see this. What's amazing about Jira for our organization and using Teams together has been we keep projects really now. They're much more cross-functional than they used to be. You can imagine you had one project manager or one Scrum Master doing their own methodology in one way. It was really important for our IT organization to streamline our DevOps processes and say, hey, let's index on Teams for communication and collaboration, and let's index on Jira for keeping our sprint planning, our epics and milestones tracked in one place so we can watch our resource allocation and project success. So very important to just emphasize here that we even killed Slack in our organization in favor of Teams, because we found that keeping all of our documents, keeping all of these things in one place was much more efficient. Our business team users were very used to Teams. It didn't make sense to have two different chatting environments and two different working environments, and Teams won out in the end.
So you did standardization and modernization all in one fell swoop when you came in. And it almost sounds, and I don't ever want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying, because the pandemic is a horrible thing and millions of people died, but it did become taking something so horrible and so tragic and saying, you know what, this is a chance to reset expectations and goals, and one of those rare opportunities to do it. And it sounds like you were ready to pull the trigger on this and take advantage of this horrible situation and allow people to rethink how they worked and how they move forward. What are your thoughts on that?
That's very, very true, Stephen. And I think what made it easier in this case, first and foremost, was that we had the workforce distributed, and they were absolutely crying for easier ways to work together. And obviously, Teams provided that, but the value add was understanding once you had access and you could understand how easy it was to use the tools, it just made our productivity skyrocket. And there was no reason to not look at what we call total cost of ownership, to keep adding one more additional capability and one more additional capability that nonprofits are getting out of the box when they invest in this entire ecosystem. So the argument to make was very easy based on cost and availability of our internal resources, and then how our staff are getting used to working in these environments. A big part of doing that is change management. People talk about all the time.
Huge.
I talk about myself as a change agent, and you and I have talked a lot about what it takes to get workforce trained to use these tools to their maximum ability, and also to put in strong platform management and product management here internally on my team was a big piece of creating the support structure required for our staff to really trust that this platform was the platform that we'd be utilizing to to keep our workforce connected. So
and to keep it secure. That's a key part too, is I have a lot of stuff in there is confidential, important, and it's also that feeling of what I have in here is secure. So that's absolutely key.
Absolutely. And Stephen, we even on the security side, we've invested in Microsoft 365 Defender services. So now we have managed service provider who's making sure that the data that we're flowing into our Azure environment, number one, is secure, but also that we shouldn't be flowing in data that we don't want to see there, and that we're able to monitor and put security policies in place so we can keep our corporate assets protected. So that's another piece that we've layered into this ecosystem. And that case has been made very easily because, again, the cost and the ability to scale is right there for us. So here's another example you're looking at right now we are in the middle of an office move. You can imagine COVID allowed us to think about our physical footprint and move our office to a part of DC, our headquarters office that is very beautiful. It's right there by the Potomac in the Kennedy Center. And what you're seeing here is an example of how we're implementing Teams calling and our conferencing capabilities in these different new spaces that we're moving into. And it's been amazing to have all of those capabilities integrated into the same hardware, the same devices that our staff are getting used to using once they do come into the office, because we will be moving to a hybrid approach starting in the new year. And so we wanted to make sure that, we had the voice over IP capabilities that Teams calling provides, where we don't have to have physical handsets anymore. You can actually move and keep your phone number from place to place. And a lot of our staff travel to support our events and to support our programs. So why not keep that capability very capable right there on their desktop or on their mobile phone, and be able to connect them to whoever they need to speak to right away in the same environment. So again, a very, very helpful investment to have this, and we're excited to see how it's going to work for us starting in January.
So Priyanka, one of the things we talked about in the opening was that you're using Teams, not only as a way to connect and work with different groups, but also as like an event management tool. You used it both in the US, you used it both in Europe. Kind of talk about how you're using it at the games, during the games.
Absolutely, Stephen. And what you're looking at on the screen now is an example of some metrics of what are our games. People think about an Olympic level event, and we're talking about a summer games. We're talking about 24 different sports at dozens of venues and across a very wide internet bandwidth, challenging scenario. And we're talking about 7,000 athletes, 80,000 credentialed participants who come to these games. And the need to be able to have data in real time is extremely important for us. So what you're seeing here is an example of powerlifting. And on the screen in the back are the powerlifting scores for every round of powerlifter who's coming up based on ability grouping. So this isn't just about how much weight you can bench, but based on your ability, what group will you be competing against?
Got it. And that's all real time. And is that Excel? Is that Dynamics, or a combination? How are you bringing that up?
You'll find it amazing. Most of the scoring tools in powerlifting are Excel based. So
sure.
That's an Excel based.
No, not at all. I've seen some amazing things with Excel. I've seen people gone way beyond what the product should do and go, I need more than the 500,000 or million lines. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? So, yeah.
But Stephen, it's amazing that the actual federations who work on powerlifting, this is their standard tool. This is not something awesome. My team developed.
I love it.
So yeah, it's a very Excel-based tool. But that said, once we're able to capture scores, we bring all of that data into a system we call Special Olympics Connect. That is a CRM solution that we will be switching over to the Dynamics platform this summer. So imagine we've been working with a previous tool that was proprietary that we could not scale. We now know the Dynamics 365 solution is the way we're going. But the example here is that we have teams of people looking at the scoring. We have teams of people making sure that the volunteers doing what they need to do, that the scoring captains and the technical delegates are there, making sure they're managing competition correctly. And then behind the scenes, you have my team focused on the solution and making sure all of that data is being integrated, that it's showing up on the teleprompters and the screens where it needs to go. And we used to run around with paper. We used to do this running around with paper. And you can imagine when something fails, you have to go find the person to fix the issue, to show the information properly, and to have the mobile app up to date. And that was just completely inefficient. So it said,
wow.
Hey, we now have teams in Germany, teams in the US, teams in Spain, teams in different countries collaborating together using Teams to deal with those issues that come up naturally in real time. So when you have all of these integrations, all these needs for live results, and to have a website updated, to have a mobile
That's
app updated,
awesome.
how do we
And
make sure that triage is happening in real time as
yeah.
soon as possible?
And some of the newer tools that are coming, like Loop, that allows you to do real time agendas and work with folks, and
Yeah.
the ability to be able to delay messages in Teams to sending at a time zone that makes sense. Some of these are really going to make this even easier. So I'm excited about some of the new features and functionality. And we're also bringing the sign language feature we've just released. So we'll be able to do that with real time sign language. So there's some cool stuff. One of the things we'd also talk about, and I know you're going to have this the thing up in a minute, is in addition to the virtual summit, you had the global youth leadership did this virtual summit. They were 18 to 25-year-olds, 100 members. They talked about how they address leadership. I know that Microsoft provides a grant for it, but above and beyond, and so do some other companies. This was a really key thing, and Teams was really big in it. And I know you're going to share a slide here, so kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a wonderful global youth leader program where youth leaders from around the world, they're really empowered to organize projects that raise awareness on the mission of Special Olympics and inclusion. So what they do is they devise of their own inclusion projects and they create teams. They create their own projects and their own teams, and then they come up with a project, and they get the grant funding that Microsoft provides to execute that project in their local community. We've had amazing initiatives, everything from tackling cyberbullying, you can imagine in a school setting, to being able to share how to even teach an athlete how to use a computer and how to use a browser and use social media. You can think of all the different projects that youth really care about. And they really focus on digital inclusivity for the first time. So how do we really think about making our digital projects and products more inclusive? And we know Microsoft spends a lot of resources and time and energy in looking at this. And you even mentioned ASL as a feature to think about for the future state. So what you're seeing is just an example of some of the youth leaders that we work with from New Zealand, from Mexico, from Albania, and we're able to ask them, hey, can you guys create your teams on Teams, devise your projects, track those projects in Microsoft Project, and then can you come up with your output or the final results in a way where you can share that with your other global youth leaders? And this is all done at a global youth summit that we used to have in person. And
Right.
now for the last few years, we've had it online, and we will continue to have an online version of this.
And that
because it
allows so
makes
many
sense.
more people not only to engage, but you have some people who are incredibly shy and will feel more comfortable chatting in a chat room than they would in person, or can connect with people better. As someone who is neurodiverse, as someone who is a big champion for mental health and mental awareness and inclusivity, virtual events can offer so many more things. Well, physical events are great. They allow people to connect. Not everybody feels comfortable doing that. So by doing this, you're really evening the playing field, which is where things like mesh avatars and Meta really open up even more opportunities for more athletes and more folks to be able to get involved. So I absolutely love this.
Yes. And Stephen, thank you for mentioning metaverse and all of that good stuff, because
Yeah.
we have been working very closely with your colleagues at Microsoft and even at Xbox on a gaming for inclusion platform. And what that means is thinking about esports.
Yeah.
And although I got a lot of raised eyebrows, like, wait, aren't we promoting physical sport? Yes, we are, absolutely.
Yeah.
We also find that online communities in the sporting world of esports are ripe for disruption, and to bring the ideas of diversity, equity, and inclusion even into the virtual spaces that we all are part of.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not bring those principles to the online space? And how do we train our athletes to be able to represent themselves and enjoy safe spaces that can also be online? So it's been wonderful to see how those athletes who may not be able to participate in physical activities can also participate in team sports online. And so we really think, we're just excited to see how esports might be something that we continue in the future with Microsoft as well.
And we've brought out so many accessory tools, both for Xbox, a bunch of new ones for the PC that replace mice with buttons and levers. And I saw one of the new accessibility mice that we announced at Ignite, and it's mind-blowing. It's awesome, and really allows people to be able to, and this really is about being able to express themselves and share their passions. I cannot, and I'm going to do a personal thing, and I normally don't do this on the show, but I'm going to challenge all of you to find a way to get involved with Special Olympics, whether you are going out to social and retweeting the stuff that they're doing, whether you're donating money or even more important, donating time and asking how you can get engaged. We're going to put up a QR code for Special Olympics that you can go visit. But I cannot tell you what an amazing and just rewarding experience it's been to be a part of this and to be a part of the joy. When you're in the stadium with all the athletes and their families, it is unlike anything you've ever attended. And it was such a great moment. Sharing that with my daughter was out of this world. My wife works for a non-for-profit, so we're very much focused on how we help others and do that. She's a champion at that as well. I donate out of each paycheck, and Microsoft matches it. So if you have a company that matches, even if you do it once a year, every little bit helps. And you can see the amazing impact that these folks have done. So from the bottom of my heart, not only do I want to thank you, Priyanka, and the amazing work you're doing, and I am here for whatever you need and however I can help. And we have a ton of MVPs who are viewing who will say, hey, I will go to any local chapter and do training. We have an army of folks who are ready to help you, and we're excited to work with you. But check out the QR code on screen. Think about how you can get involved in your community and help. It is coming right out of Christmas. We're showing this right after New Year's. It's that time when you start to think about what can I do to help make the world a better place. And this is one of those things that you can do. And it is so rewarding. And I know I'm rambling on, but I'm a little emotional about this one. And I don't normally get that way. But Priyanka, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing this. This is amazing, the work you're doing. We are here to help and support. And you're actually on vacation today. So not only you're doing this, but you're giving up your personal time to be here today on top of it, which just means the world to me. So thank you. And we're going to put up a QR code. We're going to let folks go. Any last words before I close out the show, Priyanka?
Stephen, just thank you to you and the Microsoft team for your time and for your support. And we just want all of you all to join the inclusion revolution. So please find us, find our hashtags, find us on social. And we're there for you to be part of the movement and to really think about how you can be inclusive every day. So thanks a lot, Stephen.
Do you have any T-shirts that say Inclusion Revolution?
We do.
I would like one, please, and I will wear it on my next show. So we'll get you some team swag. You send me that one. I'll wear it. We'll talk about it afterwards.
You got it. You got it.
All right. So we went a little bit over, but I apologize. This was such a great topic, and we're going to be doing more, and we're going to keep talking about this. There'll be a blog coming from Priyanka at some point in the future. We'll work on that. But for everybody, thank you. Welcome to Season 7. Thank you for all your support of Season 6. We're going to bring you more this season. We're going to have a new series called Double Click, where we're going to be double clicking into not just Teams, but all the ancillary things like Teams Rooms and MTRs and Viva and Dynamics and Mesh, where we're going to be going a little bit deeper into those with a series of 15-minute shows. We're going to keep bringing you great customer stories. If there's anything you want to hear, as always, reach out. Thank you so much to our guests today, and we will see all of you on the next episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm Stephen Rose. Thanks for joining us.